It's Backyard Garden Time with your host, Cynthia Ferguson Fowler!
I grow many fruits and vegetables in my garden every year, but very few of them have been as indigenous to the Bahamas as the cassava. If I recall, it was way back in primary school that I first came across the name cassava, and it has become one of my favorite foods ever since. For centuries, this starchy tuberous root vegetable has been one of the most important staple foods one can add to their diet. But best of all, the cassava is always delicious, no matter how you cook it. So join me as we take a walk back in time with the cassava, the root of our origin. Historical information indicates that the oldest direct evidence of cassava cultivation was discovered in a 1400-year-old Maya site in El Salvador. It is likely that it was perhaps from this region that the Lucayans introduced this vegetable into the Caribbean and the Bahama Islands. It was not until the 16th century, however, that the cassava was introduced into Africa by Portuguese traders from Brazil. From here, the plant was later introduced into Asia and Thailand, where today these countries have become the world's largest exporters. Cassava is often known by several names. These include the Brazilian arrowroot, manioc, and tapioca. In many countries, the cassava has been referred to by some people as yucca, while the Spanish word for cassava is pronounced yucca. The yucca is in fact a fruit-bearing plant. The cassava is a tall, semi-woody perennial shrub that can grow anywhere from 7 to over 15 feet high. The plant also has a few stems with reddish-brown nodes that sparingly branch out. The outer bark of the tree is usually smooth and can vary from light brown when young to a yellowish gray in color. This tuberous edible root is located under the soil, growing in clusters of 4 to 8. These clusters can grow up to 3 feet long from the stem base. Quite often, this can only be removed by considerable digging and pulling in order to access it. The plant also produces 2 sets of flowers, both male and female, that tends to attract bees and butterflies, thereby pollinating the plant. You will also notice that there is a thin reddish brown fibrous bark on the cassava. This bark should always be removed by peeling before consuming it. In the Caribbean, the most common types include the white skin and the dark skin varieties. Of these varieties, it is the white skin cassava that you should be careful of when consuming. The white cassava can usually be identified by its white or cream colored stem or petiole and skin. It is said that this cassava may have toxins that can seriously affect your health. To avoid these toxins, like in most foods, this type of cassava should be properly prepared before consumption. In the early days of the Lucayans, the cassava was often grated. The pulp was washed, then squeezed to remove the harmful juices. Today, many islanders still use this method when cleaning the white cassava. The grated portion, sometimes called the cassava meal, is often known as tapioca.